Okay, let's talk a little about the assignments, right? The point of today's lecture is to go through the assignments and figure out, right, better ways of doing it. The first thing for most everybody, I have been fairly good this semester at actually answering your pull requests, right? So if you don't get something within a day or two, then you know that something is wrong. Maybe you didn't submit, maybe you didn't, right? You didn't add me as a reviewer, all of that stuff, right? And some of you maybe have seen it. If you send early, then I can give you feedback and you can answer that feedback, right? And I can give you feedback maybe realistically every couple of days, right? Because I may not get there every day, and you guys are also not just waiting next to your phone to see whether you get feedback, right? So realistically, you can get stuff every couple of days, and so you can do 3 rounds of feedback, right? It's almost impossible for you to put the effort and not get the assignments right. That is the point. If you start late, it doesn't help, right? But, so, let's try to do assignment 1 first. I copied stuff into a different folder so that I don't accidentally submit the solutions to Bitbucket or something like that and give them to the next semester students. Okay. Let me start Eclipse. I'm on assignment 1, so if I run Gradle, right? Gradle W grade, I should get 0 out of 100 points, right? So now, let me try to import this thing. Delete this guy. File, import. Cool. So we can go here, source, main, Java. Actually, close this guy to get me more space. So, it's odd, right? How do we know? Well, it's actually the same as is even, but using not equal, right? And %2 not equals 0. That's one way to write it. Great. Now we should get 15 points or something like that. Yay! Could we write different ways? Did anybody write it in a different way?
I think it just 1.
You could check equal 1, right? Because you're divided by 2, so you're either going to get 0 or 1. So you could check for equal 1. Or you could actually do not an equal. Right? if you're closing your eyes, that means that you're that you need glasses, but also if you come closer, that usually helps. So, well, let me actually make sure that we don't mess up, right? One thing that is probably gonna be good is the computer is good at feedback loops, right? It will compile it and tell you whether you did it wrong, right or not, right? And if you did it wrong, it will give you a syntax error, right? So you want to use this feedback loop and get it as quickly as possible. I normally type like 2 lines and compile, because the freaking compiler knows the syntax. I don't have to. Normally, you do it and you will learn the syntax just by practice, but with quick feedback can help you a lot, right? And also, if you make a mistake, you know exactly what it is. You just type 2 lines. It's one of those 2 lines, right? As opposed to trying to type the whole thing. So, slip in. We should slip in if it is not a weekday or if we are on vacation. How do we do not weekdays? Or, actually, eventually Eclipse will autocomplete stuff. It's weekday, right? I think that I made sure that everybody, right? A lot of people, especially people who already took a programming class at some point in time, right? Or took some programming, were doing ifs. You don't need an if statement in here, right? If you think of booleans as values that you operate on. And woohoo! Oh, actually, I am terrible because I did this wrong. So let's fix it all together. What I did wrong here is having horrible names for these variables. They're actually reversed. This one should be called low, and this one should be called high. And then what I want to check is, so a number is in between another if it's greater than the lower and lower than the bigger one, right? Greater than or equal than low and less than or equal to high. Your code for the rest is not going to change. It's just that actually confused a couple of people. So with that function, we have a near 100 function that tells us if a number is within 10 units of 100. So it's between 90 to 110 inclusive. So 90 would return true, 110 would return true, but 111 would not, and 89 would not. Does that make sense? So how can we write this? We could write conditions, but it's nicer if we write it like this. Wrong thing.
As you've written, as in between, the greater ones are the wrong way.
Yes. You still call it the same way.
No,
Oh, you modified it the right way. Oh, did I mess it up? No, I changed it.
Oh, you swapped the values.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I swapped the names and then...
Okay, because the high was first, yeah.
It was just to confuse you. The name was high. It was working perfectly as long as you passed the low as high.
Yeah.
So now get more, right? If you did this one, whichever way you did, then this one is incredibly easy, right? Because, well, it's the exact same thing. except close to 200. Seems that I'm missing something. Nope. Let the compiler tell me what did I do. Oh. Commas and periods are not the same. They look the same. They look almost the same on the screen, but they're not the same, right? And again, if you come, right, the compiler will actually tell you problems. It tells you which file, which line number, and what the problem is, right? So it is a good idea to start, right, figuring these things on your own. It's not, you have to look and see what the message is and what's going on, right? Eventually you will make every possible mistake, so you will see every possible error message, but that's going to take you 10 years. So make sure that you read and figure out. By the way, if we were doing this in Eclipse, I tend to not do it because this would tell me there are problems. I can come here and look at the problems. And I have problems with other things. The good thing about Eclipse is that you can have a bunch of problems open. The bad thing about Eclipse is that you can have a bunch of problems open. So there's problems with a different error, different thing. If you imported all the projects, Assignment1 has compiler errors. That's unavoidable because I'm asking you to create your own classes. So you have to create the classes before the class doesn't exist, and so you'll see Eclipse always tells you that there's problems for Assignment1. Another thing that I will be bugging you about, you're programming, you don't need a mouse too much, right? Apple Tab on a Mac or Windows Tab or Alt Tab on Windows or Linux will switch between applications. And the arrow keys work for moving and for retyping the same thing, right? So now how can we write near some 100? This is either near 100 or near 200, right? So how can we write it? You could have written the conditions, right? But
that's the thing I'm always trying to remember, is that those other variables are sitting up there waiting to be used.
yes, the other functions, right, are there. And also, this code is easier to understand, right? If you, maybe these are not the perfect names or anything like that, because they're not that meaningful. But if you choose the right names, then this kind of stuff makes your code really, really easy to understand. Right? It's either near 100 or near 200. And we had run it. Now, converting yards to feet. We are given the number of yards, and so is 3 yards per feet. And that's about the extent of my British unit thing. Because normal people use metric. Metric actually makes sense.
You don't know how much a slug is?
Yes. It's two half pennies and a bucket and what's the?
And a hammer.
A peck. It's 2 pecks and an ounce. Yeah. The imperial system sucks.
Yeah, because of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things. Good thing is most people get trained in both. Um, maybe. It's one of those things that I find weird about other Americans.
Depends on the political era and which school system you went to and all that.
But usually you get like, I grew up in Mexico. I was born here, but I grew up in Mexico, right? So I have, I grew up with grams and kilograms. But coming here, every packaging has both, right? Other than miles and Fahrenheit versus Celsius, like if you go to the supermarket, it tells you it's 1 pound and it's this many grams. So you don't need to think too much. But
Jimmy Carter's legacy.
yeah, it's one of those things that for Celsius and Fahrenheit, it doesn't terribly matter. They both make sense. Actually, Celsius still makes a lot more sense for scientific stuff, but I can see people use Fahrenheit. But all the other stuff, it's like, oh God, how many yards to a mile?
A lot.
I have no clue, right? It's like, yeah, 1700-ish, maybe. Yeah, sorta, kinda. Like, oh God. Okay, but we did this. Some of you did this, and it makes sense. Stuff like final int yards to feet equals 3. It's kind of overkill, but it's good overkill. It's kind of, yeah, you should never have magic constants. On the other hand, there's 3 yards to feet. There is no.
What is final? Is that like a constant?
Final means constant, yes. Final means I won't change it. You don't really have to call it final, but you really have to mark it.
Constant. C-O-N-S-T.
That doesn't work in Java. That doesn't exist in Java. That's a syntax error.
That's a C. Okay. Okay.
Maybe, yeah, it is. Oh, by the way, have you seen that Eclipse would even give you suggestions?
Yeah.
Not in this.
I have.
Cool. Now, and some of you did this, and it's perfectly okay. Especially if you're practicing, it makes perfect sense to practice by declaring more variables and things like that. You don't need them. And this is calculating the area of a triangle, which is base times height divided by 2, right? Do we need parentheses?
No. Order precedence.
In this case, it doesn't matter, right? You're still going to divide by 2, they're all floats. So numerical analysis might tell you that you may lose a little bit more precision one way or the other, but you don't really need parentheses, right? Save, go here. And we have everything. Isn't that cool? Let me try to find out how to close this thing. Should be here, but it doesn't appear.